is a place where we talk about all different types of creative arts therapies, expressive therapies, and creative approaches to therapy. My name is Kate Shannon. I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor as well as a board-certified music therapist, and I am your host. Today's episode is with one of my most special, nearest and dearest best friend, Kristiana M. And I am so honored to have her on as a guest, not only because I just could spend hours upon hours with her, talking with her, but the topic that she talks about today is so important, and I value so much what she has shared in this episode and the emotional energy that she has poured into this time in this episode. So it's for sure one not to miss, and Kristiana is just absolutely amazing. She's a board-certified neurologic music therapist. She has been a credentialed music therapist since 2009. She has experienced supervising music therapy students and interns, and she has a wealth of clinical experience in many different settings, including hospice, addiction recovery, trauma and abuse, and community-based services. So in this episode, Kristiana and I talk about social justice within the creative arts therapy, specifically music therapy. And Kristiana talks about this from a personal and a professional perspective. So she shares her experiences related to racism, trauma, misogyny, oppression, and more within the music therapy field. And we really touch on a lot of these issues in how they continue to oppress marginalized therapists, clients, and communities. So this episode is really, really important, a really important episode. This episode is broken down into two parts because of the content. We've had this in the past couple of months of shorter episodes because the content is so much that we want to give the space that this topic deserves, and also hold extra space for you as a listener to go do more reading, go support marginalized communities, go learn more about something that you don't know, or unlearn things too. I have also added this into the show notes because this is somewhere that I actually very much need to learn more about, and there's an increased violence that's been happening with the Israeli-Palestinian crisis, and many of our fellow therapists, our communities, our clients are affected by this, and so this is something I really want to learn more about and spend time with. So I have included a few different links in the show notes as well to dig into, just to build awareness, and if it's something you also feel like you want to learn more about, there are ways to do that. So I encourage you with these shorter episodes that do talk about different things like disability, race, and oppression in any way, to spend that extra 15 minutes that would normally be on the episode and do some digging or read an article or go follow different Black, Indigenous, people of color on Instagram, go support, and, even if that, go buy a dinner at a Black-owned business, or find ways to get involved with the community and support our communities as well as learn for ourselves too, spend the time learning and unlearning. So also, just as a heads up, in these next two episodes, there's probably a little bit more profanity, which I think is well-deserved considering the topic that we're talking about. So just wanted to put that out there, and enjoy this episode, and I'll talk to you on the other side. Okay. All right. Kristiana, the Zillith to my Zazzle, my fellow murderino, my colleague in music therapy, and my old apartment complex neighbor. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Kate.
I'm so glad this is happening.
Colleagues. Yes.
Likewise. Yes.
Yay.
My D&D partner every weekend. It's just about time that we do this episode.
Absolutely.
Yes. Thank you for being here so much, for the time and the energy that you are putting into this episode. I want to thank you on the front end, and I'll probably do it again, but I can't say it enough. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, for our listeners, can you tell us a little bit about yourself as a person and a little bit about yourself as a professional?
Yes. Well, as you said, I'm Kristiana Minor. I am a board certified neurologic music therapist in the territory of the Arapaho tribe, now known as Denver, Colorado. I've been an MTBC for almost 12 years now.
Whoop, whoop.
I've worked in a variety of settings. I started in hospice, moved into more psych, hospital, medical settings, addiction recovery, community wellness, and now I'm in community based services, working with children and adults. That's me as a professional. Me as a person, I am a proud Filipino American. I'm the first of my family born in the US. I was born in Chicago. Um, yes. I grew up in a bizarre way, I would say. Um, I I was raised in fundamentalist homeschooling version of evangelical Christianity, and it kind of just spiraled out of control from there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which oddly enough was in the news today in a
Oddly
connected, weird
enough.
way. Mm-hmm.
Oddly enough,
Yeah.
yes. Predators gonna be predators. But yes, the fundamentalist cult I grew up in was the Institute in Basic Life Principles. Their homeschooling program was called the Advanced Training Institute, and it is what the 19 Kids and Counting family TLC reality show folks did. That's the program that they supported and were involved in. I was also in a quiverful family, even though my family was considered small, having only 6 children.
Only 6 children.
Only 6 children, and
Mm-hmm.
within that belief system, I mean, you're very isolated. The only time I left the house was to go to church on Sundays and Tuesdays, and then piano lessons on Saturdays. Everything else was at home. I was the oldest daughter, and so basically second mommy to all of my siblings, expected to help raise them while I also had to self-educate myself.
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, and it was a terrible education. It was basically cult propaganda that was approved, and you had your little booklets that you worked on, you had a bunch of Bible verses that you memorized, and they said that would be enough. They really heavily discouraged higher education, especially for women. My whole purpose was to practice being a good servant woman.
Wife.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, basically your father is the mouthpiece of God, and you had to comply and obey everything that your parents told you to do, and then ownership was transferred over to whoever your father decided you would marry. But that luckily wasn't my story. I
Yay.
I was told, well, what if your future husband dies? Who's going to take care of all your children? So they allowed me to get an actual college degree at a real university, where I met and picked my own husband,
Yes. Who is awesome.
who's pretty cool. He's pretty
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
He's a little bit mean on the dungeon master side, but other than that,
He is our
pretty cool.
dungeon master,
Yeah,
who's
it's a really
constantly
good
trying
job.
to kill us.
But we can look past that.
Yes, we can all just be nerdy and silly and have so
Mhm.
much fun together. So yes, that is my background. A lot of personal experience and trauma that I have transformed into. I mean, I've had so many years of processing and and trauma specific therapy, and even like cult survivor specific therapy work, as well as after I got my bachelor's in music therapy, I worked for a few years in hospice, um, and then also addiction recovery, and then I came back to school and got my master's in music therapy. And I focused a lot of my work there on how music can help folks who have experienced abuse. I did my thesis work on how music therapy interventions could affect the distress levels of people living in a domestic violence shelter, which was pretty incredible. And me dipping my toe into, okay, how does this work with the credentials and the scope of practice I have now? How does this work?
Yes.
And it's incredibly powerful. I think music can set that safe space so that some processing can begin. Yeah.
That container is really great.
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. You need to have that space. You need someone to hold that space so that you can kind of
Yeah.
relax into it. Yeah. Express.
Yes. Mm,
Move towards something different, something better. Yeah.
yes. Find the
Yes.
edges.
Yes. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um,
And that has now led you to, even this week, your newest adventure as well to
my newest
continue.
adventure.
Yeah.
Yes, I started my neurocounseling graduate program this week, and it's been, oh man, I'm still not sure what I think about it because it only started on Monday.
So fresh.
So very fresh, very
Yes.
fresh. I'm still wrapping my mind around it, but I'm so very excited to add the scope of practice and toolkit of an LPC to what I already know and do as a music therapist.
Yes, yes. And just to clarify, because I know this is something that's very different with music therapy that I know with a lot of our other creative arts therapists who are listening, like a lot of art, dance, drama, play therapy, most of the other creative arts therapies are able and can get licensure as professional counselors right out of school. However, as music therapists, that does not often happen, actually, incredibly infrequent for music therapists because we are still bachelor's level entry. But even if
Mm-hmm.
you have a master's, it doesn't usually qualify for
No.
licensure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's a long road for music therapists if you're
I'm
getting.
watching it stretch out in front of me right now.
Yes, but it's so worth it. It's so worth it. It's worth
I'm
it.
so excited about it. I'm
Yes.
already having a blast and I'm already really tired.
Yes. That like
But it's
feeling of
great.
excitement and exhaustion at the same
Yes.
time
Yes.
is yes.
Holding both of
Mhm.
those things in equal measure, I think.
Yes, 100%. And it's
Yep.
interesting how much they can happen, how we can hold both of those of being exhausted and excited at the same time.
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. I love that. Cool. Well, I wonder if we can dig into some of our other questions. And this is actually, too, I'll make sure to link this in our show notes for listeners. Some of these questions are based off of a really amazing panel that you were on through it was through a continuing education opportunity through Utah. It was the Utah State Association, I believe,
The
right?
Utah Association of Music Therapy. Yeah.
Yes,
UAMT. Yeah.
yes. Such an amazing, one of the best CEMT opportunities I had done in a really long time, and a panel of really wonderful people coming together talking about really important topics. So we're gonna dive into some really awesome questions, and I'll link to that in the show notes if anyone wants to. I think it's available for maybe like another month to purchase to view it if you can, but I will follow up with that and see and put that in our links. But we're going to go into our first question, which is what has your experience been as a music therapist of color? For example, the biases or the barriers that you have faced.
Um, let's see. I I have always experienced and encountered these biases and barriers. There's not really a time I can remember when I haven't. It's just always been a thing. I remember as a kid, I was at summer camp with a bunch of other kids and we were having fun and running around outside. And I think I was in line for the zip line. And this one girl just came up to me and looked at me. She goes, "What are you?" I knew immediately what she meant. And I said, "Oh, I'm Filipino." And she just frowned at me and she said, "Oh, my mom doesn't like Filipinos." She just left it at that. And I didn't know what to say. What do you say?
Oh,
And when I went
yes.
home and I spoke with my parents about it, I they just told me, "Well, it's up to you to try harder and prove them wrong." Prove them wrong about what? What am I supposed to try harder at? How is it that I can just exist and someone can say, I don't like you. And then my background, my culture tells me, "Oh, you just need to put your head down, work harder, push through it." And that is kind of just encapsulates that whole immigrant striving, um, model minority kind of mindset of, "Oh, just be quiet, just be quiet, it'll get better, we're lucky they even let us in." And I mean, I was born here, I belong
Yes.
here. It's just I look
Mhm.
the way I do, and so I always have been otherized. um and so that's always, it's something I'm used to. I mean, your first night in the dorms freshman year, they're talking about, "Okay, everybody get to know each other, we're all going to be friends here, live here and everything. All right, so who's from this background, who's from this?" And everyone turns and looks at you because you're the only Asian on the in the whole floor. And it's just like,
Mhm.
here I am again. Okay, okay. And I mean, it's fine, I make great friends and everything. But it's just part of the fabric of my experience and existence. And it's the same, I think, in the field of music therapy. I honestly often feel like I have to try harder, perform better, shoot higher, um, just to be seen as competent, just to be um, given even the littlest bit of respect. Um,
Mhm.
and maybe some of that is just my own perception of it all. But when I walk into a room and my intern is um, white and male, and everyone in the room defers to him first, everyone asks him the questions first, and poor guy goes, "I'm not sure you need to ask her." It's like, "Hello, excuse me."
Mhm.
Excuse me. Yes, I am the clinician in this situation. Do you
Supervisor.
have? Yeah, I'm the supervisor.
Yes.
Do you have some questions? And it's that kind of surprise of, "Oh, it's you. Hmm. Okay. Interesting. Interesting." When I walk into a room, I feel like I have more to prove because people make assumptions about me before I open my mouth, before they know anything about what I bring to the table, before they know my experience and credentials, before anything happens. I feel like I get outright dismissed. And so I have to be on the ball and I have to push just so that I don't get shoved off to the side.
Mhm.
Yeah. I
Perpetually trying to be ahead.
Yeah, and it's
Mhm.
pretty damn tiring.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes.
Mhm. Um Also, as a clinician, this is something that I've brought up with you before, Kate. Just experiencing microaggressions on the job. Um Being having racism redefined in front of my face, or being told, "Oh, yeah, you're Vietnamese," and going on, and it's like, "Oh, you never asked me, you never spoke with me. Can I have a hello first?" Because you took an assumption and you're running with it. I have been told, "Oh, your people enjoy being in service to others." I've had people do fakey, jokey Asian accents to my face. Or I've even been straight up told I don't like Asians to my face. And this is all within a session.
In a professional setting.
In a professional setting where I am still a little bit at a loss of how to respond to those things, because the therapist client power differential, those dynamics um, within a professional setting, they get sticky, they get messy, and I'm not sure. Okay, how do I respond as a person, but also I am the music therapist in this situation. I have responsibilities and I have a professional veneer I have to keep up. And what do I do? Do I go and just like scream in my car after?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's interesting for sure. There's been a lot of things that have happened also. Just seeing a lot of the online discussions within our field, within the field of music therapy, it gets exhausting. It gets exhausting to have to perpetually advocate for marginalized identities, um, and see that advocacy get dismissed, or to see folks expect that free education spoon fed to them, um, and then it gets dismissed. And thankfully, some folks in our field are a little more with it.
Thank God.
Right? Some of us.
Still not enough, but
Not nearly enough. No, no. Um, so I mean, it's all part of the same fabric of my experience in general, I think. Just a, a culture of otherization, and I'm never quite sure how safe I am in a space, especially with recent events. Um, yeah. Yeah, I do feel that my perspective as someone who holds several marginalized aspects, um, that I have a little bit more sensitivity and compassion when I am working with folks who are marginalized as well. I can
Mhm.
have that little extra bit of sympathy, of understanding, um, and I can extend that to them to create that safe space, that holding area where they can express and feel okay, feel like someone understands.
Yes, and feel safe in that. And like get it, like I think the thing is, it's like you can hit the ground running on that versus, me as a white therapist, I don't know that experience. So if I haven't done my work to try to understand it and, support as much as I can, it's so different when someone automatically gets it and is like, yes, I've experienced that as well. Like, I got you, I know it, versus me as a white person, which is more along the lines too of goes into some of the online things that we have been seeing of we bring ourselves into the session no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And me being white, I'm not going to get some of that stuff. Like I can do all of my work and behind the scenes and learn and unlearn, but I'm still white. And there's so much of that this was just one of the big ones that was in one of the music therapy groups of not keeping politics out of the session.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and I think everything you've already shared exemplifies how we are humans coming into a session with our experiences, and that we bring ourselves into the session, and ourselves are political. Like we
Mm-hmm.
are ourselves, and we bring all of that in.
Yes, yes. And I can't help that I'm coming in brown and queer with invisible illnesses and all these other things. I can't
Mhm.
split those things from myself as a person before I
Yes.
walk into a session. And I shouldn't. I shouldn't, because then
No.
what's left?
Yes, yes,
Yes.
exactly. And I love that. You shouldn't. You shouldn't have to do that.
Mm-mm. No, no,
Mm-hmm.
not at
Yeah.
all. Not
Mm-hmm.
at all. And yes, I think there's a lot of really important growing pains and discussions happening in the field of music therapy currently.
There are.
There are, and I'm hoping things move along.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that we
Hip
progress.
hop people.
I know. Let's get
Pretty
moving.
behind
What are
here.
we? I know, like how many decades are we behind in
Yes.
certain areas?
Yes. Yes. And
Mhm.
especially with the intricacies, and I'm sure this is true for any creative arts, but creativity is such a form of emotional expression when the words cannot be there. And
Yes,
for communities of color, for any, for communities with disabilities, every community that has been oppressed in any way, the arts have been an outlet. And
absolutely.
how could we can't take these art forms and bring them into a session and not come from that lens of awareness and activism.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Music has always been political. The arts have always
Yes.
been political.
Yes.
Yes. And I, again, can't help that I have been politicized. I just exist as a person, and yet aspects of me are considered politics. And I've had that thrown at me before of, well, can't you just leave the politics? Just don't even bring it up. It's just so much easier that way. No, 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 no. For one thing, I don't get to ignore the politics. Many of our clients and our patients and our colleagues do not get to ignore the politics because for them, it is their life, it is their existence. It's not just the thing that's on the evening news or something that pops up, on a feed somewhere. That's not what it is. This has to do with the essence of who people are. Really.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's people. We are people first, no matter what.
Mhm.
Like, it's a person, a people. We have experiences, and I feel like it's almost this shield that comes out of like, oh well, just that's politics, and like this, like, again, I also think that comes out in a lot of different abusive religions, under the banner of heaven, under the banner of
Ah.
politics, and it's like, no, no, no,
Mhm.
no, you can't. No, we're talking about people, so
Yes.
got to drop those shields.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. um so can you tell us, how do you feel that some social justice issues have impacted the field of creative arts therapy, or specifically music therapy?
Well, um, I think we've already touched on it a little bit with the
Mm-hmm.
growing pains
Yes.
that are currently happening in the field of music therapy right now, where I feel as though, just from my observation, that there's so many folks who do not hold marginalized identities who truly have been surprised by everything happening. If for them it feels like it's all at once, and all these things happen at once, and now social justice is a trend. Black Lives Matter is a trend. This is just a hashtag that's popular right now, and that is not true. It's only popped up in your life recently. All these news stories and um, all this speaking out. I mean, I first got involved, I feel, in social justice as a cult survivor because I was speaking up about things of wait, 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 wait. So I wouldn't be allowed to date my now husband because we're two different colors. That was considered unequally yoked in certain circles. I got a lot of racist treatment from his family and from, the various churches we've been to. Um,
Mm.
I was speaking up about, yeah, the racism, the misogyny, the patriarchy of everything that I had experienced. And then I came out as queer when things were safe, when I was on my own and independent and no longer had ties to any of that old world. But I had been an advocate before then, or at least tried to be an ally to my friends who were out. And so this was all, in my personal life, and I started speaking up more about the cult and everything, and doing interviews and doing presentations at local humanistic groups and everything. I this Me carrying it over into my professional world is kind of new for me. Honestly, I have felt like I've been surviving, trying
Mm-hmm.
to just keep paddling along and make a living wage and support my family and just keep going. But it's not enough. It hasn't been enough for me. There hasn't been the change that I've wished to see. And so I've been really motivated to extend my outspokenness into my professional world as well, where I've previously been kind of afraid to bring
Mm-hmm.
that conversation because of that attitude of, oh no, we're all friends here, we leave politics at the door. That's
Toxic
not how.
positivity.
Exactly, the toxic
Mm-hmm.
positivity of it all, of can't we all just get along, that dismisses everything about, well, for me personally, what I've experienced, who I am as a person. We can't all just ignore what's happened and then hold hands and prance off into, rainbows and butterflies and a gorgeous sunset or something.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
like saying shove down your emotions so I can feel comfortable.
and let me tell you, I don't put up with that shit.
Yeah.
Because coming out of the cult and all of that, I mean, I lost everybody and everything. My support structure, my family,
Mm-hmm.
everybody. Once I started asking the wrong questions, once I started saying the wrong things, and I mean all this is in quotes.
Mm-hmm.
Um I I I yeah, it was tough. It was tough.
Mm-hmm.
But all this to say is, like, I've been speaking up about these issues for a long time, and I'm glad to see these discussions are happening now in our field because they are long overdue. They are
Yes.
so long overdue. We need to be better as a field and move forward and actually maybe do a little bit of catch up. Not that any other therapy field is perfect. We're not. We're all
Mm-hmm.
human and learning and growing, hopefully,
Mm-hmm.
together. But I feel like there's some holdouts in the field of music therapy. There's folks who
Yeah.
don't want to learn better. They don't want to learn and then do better and take actionable steps to make sure that, hey, maybe we shouldn't be dismissing what our neurodivergent therapists are saying. Maybe we should listen to what our therapists of color are saying. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
we should allow, affinity groups to have their safe spaces at conferences sometimes.
Yes.
Maybe we should make sure that our virtual conferences are actually accessible to the folks who need those accommodations.
Mm-hmm.
It
After
boggles,
they've written in asking
right?
about those. Oh, yeah.
It boggles my mind that we can call ourselves a therapy field and
Yeah.
be doing or not doing those things.
Mm-hmm.
I get all fired up about it. So I think, again, I feel like we're having so many growing pains and hard conversations and people spazzing out. But it needs to happen. It
It
needs to
does.
happen, and people need to be okay with being uncomfortable because I
Mm-hmm.
get it. Coming from the background I did, I was raised by some of the most racist people I ever met. I grew up in the most homophobic, transphobic, everything phobic
Mm-hmm.
community that I've ever known, at least here in the US. And somehow learned better and
Mm-hmm.
am trying to actively do better. Um, I all of these subjects, social justice, equality, accessibility, addressing our biases, it's all intertwined with quality of life, honestly. Just life in general. And why why do we ignore those things or pretend it's just politics and dismiss it? And then what? We're going to grab a guitar and sing Kumbaya? I don't think so. No.
Uh-huh.
And we all have our own circles of influence. I know I I feel sometimes like I rant into the void. Yes, but we all have our own circle. We all have folks that we can exert that influence on for a positive, in a positive way. So why not amplify marginalized voices in the circle that you're already in? Why not speak up when someone says something terrible? And say, hey, at least say, hey, what do you mean by that? Because that can be a good pause point of, ooh, what did I say? It could be a good discussion point. And it's scary to be confrontational. It is. But how else are we going to move forward? How else are we going to keep going? Otherwise, we're just going to be stagnant. And I feel like some folks in our field want us to be stagnant. They want us to just grab a guitar and play Kumbaya and everything will be good.
All right, that is where we are going to stop for part 1 of this episode. So be sure to tune in next week for part 2. Again, with the extra few minutes that you do have that you might normally have spent listening to this podcast, we want to raise different voices in our community. We want to raise Black, Indigenous, people of color, raise their voices. So spend the time, again, if you can, learning, unlearning, following, supporting people of color in all the places that you spend your time and spend your energy. So with that, there are a few different links in the show notes. There are Kristiana's book as well is in the show notes, which is amazing. Definitely check that out. I think she talks more about it in the next episode, but we'll hear more about it then. Also, there is an anonymous survey as well in our show notes that you are always welcome and encouraged to fill out that talks about anything that you would like to hear more of. If you think we missed something or if we misrepresented something or have any type of feedback for us, that is there for you to use whenever you would like, and you can do so anonymously. As well as you can always reach out via email, kate@creativetherapyumbrella.com. Always feel free to email me, and I love hearing from listeners. So thank you so much for your support, for being a listener, and stay tuned for part 2 of next week's episode, and be creative.